Hello and welcome to William Mullen's Benefits Companion, a podcast that helps employers navigate the complex legal challenges of managing their employee benefit plans. I'm your host, Brydon DeWitt, and today I'm delighted to be joined by a new guest to our podcast, Stephanie Karn, a partner in William Mullen's Labor, Employment, and Immigration section. Welcome to the Benefits Companion, Stephanie.
Thanks, Brydon. I'm happy to be here.
Throughout 2026, we are going to dedicate some of our episodes to those to-dos that may be on your list or lingering for a while. The goal is to provide you with fresh perspectives and practical steps so you can check them off your list. I asked Stephanie to join us because we're tackling something that can feel pretty basic, but is easy to overlook, the employee handbook. Most employers have one, but a lot of handbooks haven't been reviewed in a while. So if you don't have one or yours has been sitting in a file since 2019, this episode is for you. So Stephanie, let's start really from the beginning. Who actually needs an employee handbook?
I would say pretty much everybody if you are employing 2 or more people. And I say that with a caveat. Most people think handbook and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm handing them a missive that is, 40, 50, 60 pages. And handbooks don't have to be that way. I have worked with a number of companies, smaller ones who really have just want to issue key policies and put that together. I've worked with some people and said, here's the 4, 5, or 6 I would start with, and let's go from there. But it's amazing once you start to do that, you turn to, let me compile them together. It's a great way to introduce your culture to your employees. It's your first opening. Here we are. This is who we are. This is what we are about. And it also provides a nice framework and guidance for your managers and your supervisors and giving them support when they want to point to an employee and say, that's not how we do things here. And I'm backed up by the handbook. So it's something everyone should have, whether they have a 5-page handbook or a 50-page handbook.
And I think the handbook kind of for a new employee is part of their first impression of the company.
100%. Yes.
If the company doesn't have a handbook, then, well, it kind of makes you wonder. And then if it's a poorly written handbook or, I think it's important to have a quality handbook just from the culture perspective.
Great. I mean, if you think about it, all employers, no matter where they're located, doesn't matter what state, sometimes it doesn't even matter what city, they're going to have in their employee lounge or their entranceway or their human resources area the list of all the posters that everyone requires you to have. When is the last time anybody walked into their employer's office location and actually looked at the posters that are there? They don't do that. And they're overwhelming. And there are so many you don't know. Yes, you get a new poster every year by the services that provide them, but that's not what they go to look at. And so when they have a question, it's great that you have something that you have handed them when they start that says, this is what we are about. This is what we stand for. This is what we expect from you. And this is what you should expect from us. That's a great way to get to learn about your company, your employer from the outset when you start with them.
Okay, so we know that employers need to have a good employee handbook. So what should be in the handbook? Should it include everything, including the kitchen sink, or are there just certain essential items that should be in the handbook? What's the scope of this document?
The scope is the true essentials. There are a few. There's sort of a core group. Depending on where you are located, even, you need to pay attention to, if I have one, I'm going to make sure I have the right disclaimer. South Carolina, for example, has a law on the books that says unless you put it on the first page, underlined, all caps, that is not an adequate disclaimer, and the courts there will look to a handbook as forming a contract. We don't want it to be a contract between the employer and the employee. We want it to be a handbook and a guide. It's something to go look at from the start. So what we encourage our clients to do is maybe have an intro statement of our purpose, not anything super detailed, certainly nothing like, we hope you work for us forever. That gets us back to this idea of a contract. But you want to have your equal employment opportunity statement, your classic EEO statement. You want to make sure you have an anti-discrimination and anti-harassment policy. And the reason I say those is, one, we all want a workplace that is free from all of that. We won't tolerate it. We won't put up with it. We want to make sure people know when they're coming to us to work with us that we do not allow that, and we won't put up with it, and we will take corrective steps immediately. But on the flip side, if we ever do get a complaint along those lines, the first question we're going to be asked by the EEOC or the Office of Civil Rights is, do you have a policy against discrimination and harassment? And we absolutely want to say, yes, we do. And it's given to all of our employees. Just from a basic business perspective, it's good to cover attendance. Is it mandatory, whether it's fully remote, fully in the office, some hybrid? You're expected to be at work when you're supposed to be at work, and there's ways to report that. That way, if someone is not showing up for work, you can point out that they are not abiding by your policy, and you can take appropriate steps.
Right. It's supporting the managers. When
That's
they have to
exactly right.
enforce the rule, they can point to the
They can point to the handbook. And so you also want to have, what are grounds for discipline? Or if we don't want to call it discipline, what is expected workplace conduct? And these are the types of things that's a not exclusive list or all inclusive. We do the caveat of these are some of the things that, we will not put up with here. And it will tell all persons that if they engage in such behavior, they are subject to discipline up to and including termination. And again, it allows your human resource person, it allows your supervisor or your manager to point to it and say, you knew this from the outset. We don't tolerate this here. And it also allows coworkers to know that there is protection for them, that we won't put up with it, that if something's happening in the workplace that is should not be tolerated, or they don't appreciate, or they don't want, they have something to point to as well and say, hey, cut that out, don't do that. We'll cover confidentiality. We'll cover electronic communications, for example. In this day and age, pretty much everyone has, if not a desktop or a laptop, some sort of smartphone, something that allows them to be connected to their employer. And so we're going to want to make sure that they know from the outset that that is employer issued. There's no right of privacy in anything they send over our electronic systems. So those are the types of things. We could cover overtime and what that means. But we want to get some core policies compiled in one place, because the last thing that we really recommend is that you include an acknowledgement form at the end of this, that the employees sign off on, acknowledging they've received it, that they have read it or will read it, and that they understand that there is an anti-discrimination, anti-harassment policy. If they are employed at will, they know they're employed at will, which means they don't have a contract for a set term, and it's something the employer can hold on to. And it's also, one last point on this, a great way for the employer to keep track of, do I have one for every new employee that starts? Have they been given a handbook? And two, I want those every year. So I should set it as a mechanism to review my handbook every year, because as the General Assemblies in the respective states roll in each year, they're looking to make changes in the law that could change what you've set forth in your handbook.
So you recommend annual review and updating of the employee handbooks?
I do, yes. I don't know that it needs to be a whole massive, honestly, I don't know that you need to get outside counsel every single time. But if you realize maybe, okay, this year we're reviewing it internally, we've gotten some updates from, alerts from our counsel that there's nothing big in the employment realm this year. So we're going to check with our benefits person, you, Brydon, to see if there's anything on that area. Otherwise, maybe we do it internally. But every other year, or if we know some big law has come down on the books and we've gotten an alert that says, guess what, you now need to include reasonable accommodations for pregnancy and childbirth and related conditions, which is a law in Virginia, has to be in your handbook. You're going to want to make sure your handbook is updated in that year.
So I will say, as far as including employee benefits in the handbook, that's a concern that I often have when I see detailed descriptions of employee benefits in an employee handbook. ERISA requires a plan to have an official plan document and a summary plan description, and we maintain those. And so if there is an amendment to the plan, we update the summary plan description. But if you then have a third document, the employee handbook, that becomes obsolete or isn't as carefully reviewed, consistent with the terms of the plan, you could be making ERISA statements that are considered part of the summary plan description, even though you didn't intend that in the employee handbook. So to me, benefits descriptions in the employee handbook are kind of a rogue description of benefits that are outside the careful control we have with the plan document and the summary plan description. So my preference is to have references, like refer to the summary plan description but not have detailed descriptions of who's eligible and what the matching contribution is under the 401k plan, or just, I think you can salute benefits, but my preference as a benefits lawyer, maybe you have a different perspective, is to then cross-reference or refer employees to the official documents describing benefits, because you're going to have open enrollment materials that describe benefits. You have the summary plan description, and then you have the official plan document. And so I just get nervous when I see detailed descriptions of benefits in the employee handbook.
Brad, I'm right there with you. And when I get asked to review handbooks that I haven't crafted, my section on benefits is usually a lot of X's and
Yeah,
taking the extra material. I am happy, and I usually recommend that your benefits section in a handbook, if it gets to 2 pages, maybe it's because you offer a lot, but all I've got is a big disclaimer at the top that they need to refer to all summary plan descriptions they control. All that's here is a list of what we might offer at this snapshot of time with no details behind it, and that the employer reserves the right at any time to amend or change these consistent with the actual plans. And I'm taking out a lot of the excess things. So I am with you 100% for that exact same reason. I don't want them feeling locked in and having a benefit change or a plan change, and they don't catch it there. And someone suddenly asking you as they're walking out the door, well, when I came in 6 years ago, this is the handbook I signed. It listed all of these benefits. Why am I not keeping them or getting them when I leave?
right. Exactly. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on to the Benefits Companion. I think this has been great practical advice for employers about their employee handbooks.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed my time, and I am happy to answer any more questions on this topic any chance I can get.
So that wraps up our episode of the Benefits Companion. If listeners have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please contact me. You can also visit our employee benefits page at williamsmullen.com/employee benefits. There you can find out more about our team, as well as past episodes of this podcast and legal alerts. Finally, be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when our next episode posts. Thanks for listening.
This podcast contains general condensed summaries of actual legal matters, statutes, and opinions for information purposes. It is not meant to be and should not be construed as legal advice. Individuals with particular needs on specific issues should retain our services or the services of other competent counsel.